Hello from the car park at Greenfaulds Station, Cumbernauld. Greenfaulds Station was opened in 1989 as part of a scheme by Strathclyde Transport to improve services on the Cumbernauld to Glasgow line. Initially there was just a service between Cumbernauld and Glasgow Queen Street, a shuttle service. The next thing that happened was that in 1996 North Lanarkshire Council they launched a diesel shuttle service from Motherwell to Cumbernauld, calling it Coatbridge Central and Greenfaulds. The routes through this station were electrified in 2014 for the Commonwealth Games, and the Motherwell service was extended through Glasgow into the Argyll line at Dalmuir. Lumo, which is a subsidiary of First Group, are progressing with plans to run a train service between Stirling and London Euston, calling it Larbert, Greenfaulds, Whifflet, Motherwell, Lockerbie, Carlisle and various stations in England. People who don't know the area might wonder why Greenfaulds for Cumbernauld when there is a station at Cumbernauld. I suppose the short answer is, let's have a look at the car park. And you see the car park behind me, and there's a picture without me in it. Greenfaulds Station to the right, and the car park, which even at 10:30 on a Thursday morning is by no means full, and it's very spacious, and you see there is land around it for extending the car park should the need arise. The other reason for choosing Greenfaulds is its position in relation to the road network. I've come here from my home, which is next to junction 3 of the M80, and it took 10 minutes for the drive. And to get from here to the M80, which is not far, there is in fact a dual carriageway, the A73, which goes to Airdrie in the other direction. So there's a dual carriageway to Airdrie and there's a dual carriageway to the M80. So access to Greenfaulds is remarkably easy, much easier than it is to or from Cumbernauld Station. At present there's no direct service from Greenfaulds to Stirling. You need to change at either Camelon or Falkirk Grahamston. Train for Falkirk Grahamston, change there for Stirling. The new service is welcomed by Stirling Council, making it easier to reach North West England and the Midlands. Currently the best route is with changing at Edinburgh or going via Glasgow, which involves getting between Queen Street and Central stations. Although I'm excited at the prospect of parking here at Greenfaulds and jumping on a train to Carlisle, I do have misgivings about resilience and reliability. I'm not sure what seagulls think. My main concern about using the Lumo service, reliability and resilience, because the Avanti West Coast service between Glasgow and London is very unreliable. I look back at the last week on real-time trains and there were 4 days in a week with disruptions. The worst being Monday the 26th of June, when due to fallen trees, which I admit is not their fault, there were no trains whatsoever from Glasgow Central down to London. In fact, most of the trains were cancelled between Preston and Glasgow. So it was another instance where you get turfed out of a train at Preston and left to your own devices, which has happened to me. I've been abandoned by Avanti West Coast at Preston on a northbound train and told to make my own decisions and plans for getting to Glasgow with no help whatsoever from Avanti management. Will that be the same with Lumo? If I'm stuck here at Greenfaulds waiting for a train that's cancelled, what do I do, given that there are no facilities at all at Greenfaulds apart from the free car park and the motorway home? And if I'm stuck at London or Carlisle and the Lumos are all cancelled through no fault of their own because of infrastructure problems, then what do I do? Certainly people in London have probably never heard of Greenfaulds, so I'd go to Euston and say, how do I get to Greenfaulds? The train is cancelled. And they would say, where's that? What's it called? Cumbernauld, as they used to say. So according to my notes, on Thursday the 26th of June, 5 trains from Glasgow Central to London Euston were cancelled, and that was given as an overhead line problem. But that problem would also apply to Lumo. They would be unable to run trains. So what would they do? The problem with Avanti, of course, is that they steadfastly refuse to use diversionary routes north of Preston. In other words, to settle in Carlisle and the Glasgow and South Western through Dumfries and Kilmarnock. Although British Rail did, and there's photographic evidence on social media that Virgin Trains used to use those routes. Avanti themselves did in fact use the Glasgow and South Western a couple of years ago when there was a bridge repair job in South Lanarkshire. The use of the Class 222 Voyager type trains means that Lumo might be able, because they're diesel, to use the Glasgow and South Western, at least between Glasgow and Carlisle. I believe there are still some drivers with the route knowledge, but that's part of the problem. To maintain route knowledge, they have an arrangement with ScotRail to ride in their cabs, but of course that means that the Avanti West Coast drivers are not productive for a day when they're refreshing their route knowledge. Will Lumo do that? What's going to be their policy about diversionary routes when there are infrastructure problems? Will they use them, or will they simply turf everybody out at Preston like Avanti West Coast do at the moment? In conclusion, although I'm excited about the prospect of driving here to Greenfaulds and parking easily in the free, spacious car park to get a train possibly to Carlisle or to somewhere in England, I have a lot of anxiety about the reliability and resilience of Lumo to be reliable, given that Avanti West Coast are totally unreliable in my personal experience and through researching on real-time trains. I'd like to use the service, I'd like to see it successful. But what would Lumo do if I'm stuck at Greenfaulds or Preston and they're unable to run trains? Lumo already operate between Edinburgh and London, stopping at Morpeth, Newcastle and Stevenage, but I've never used their service. They have a bit of a reputation for being a bit like Ryanair, with a strict baggage policy, and the catering is a trolley that occasionally wanders up and down the train, and that's about it. Having said that, when I've seen a Lumo train, they're always well filled. But that's the Ryanair principle. Pile it high, sell it cheap, and if people complain, tough. And here is Cumbernauld station. It took me 11 minutes to walk here from Greenfaulds, and you can see there isn't really much space here. It's a scruffy little station as well. This is of course the Caledonian Railway main line from Aberdeen, Perth, Stirling to Carlisle and England. The milepost on Cumbernauld station showing that we're 101.25 miles from Carlisle. I'll applaud Lumo for revitalising the old Caledonian main line from Stirling to Carlisle and wish it success. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to sponsor me with a coffee for making these lovely films, please see the link here to Ko-fi. And I'd like to thank all my donors who are shown here on this slide. Thank you very much.
The 1032 service to Glasgow Queen Street, calling at Gartcosh, Steps, Rock Royston, Springburn and Glasgow Queen Street. This train is formed of 3 carriages